Last Thanksgiving, my son stood up at the dinner table, in the house I built with my own hands, and announced to the family that it was time to start thinking about getting Dad into a place where he'll be looked after. He said it about me while I was sitting right there, passing the potatoes. He didn't ask me. He informed the table. And everyone nodded, because to them I had already become a problem to be solved rather than a man to be consulted. What my son didn't know, what none of them knew, was that every single thing they were sitting inside of, eating off of, and planning to divide up, still belonged entirely to me. And I had been paying very close attention to who deserved it. My name is Walter Brennan. I'm 68 years old. And this is the story of what happens when your children decide you're done, and forget to check whether you agree. Let me tell you who I am, because my children seem to have forgotten, and you should know before we go any further. I spent 41 years as a builder. Not a developer in a suit, a builder, with my hands, with crews I trained myself, putting up houses and small commercial buildings across this county for 4 decades. I started with nothing but a borrowed truck and a reputation for showing up when I said I would, and I ended with a construction company that, when I sold it 9 years ago, I sold for a sum that would surprise every member of my family, because I never once talked about money at the dinner table. My late wife, Ruth, and I were raised to believe that talking about your money was as vulgar as talking about your problems, and we did neither. I'll tell you one thing about those 41 years, because it explains how I see people. In construction, you learn very fast that talk is worthless and only the work tells the truth. A man can stand on your job site and tell you he's the finest framer in 3 counties, and you don't believe a word of it. You wait, and you watch what his corners look like, whether his walls are plumb, whether he cleans up after himself or leaves it for someone else. I hired hundreds of men over the years, and I was almost never fooled, because I stopped listening to what people said about themselves and started watching what they actually did when they thought the boss wasn't looking. That habit doesn't switch off when you retire. I was watching my own children the same way I used to watch a new hire's corners. They just didn't know the job site had moved to the dinner table. The house I live in, the house where my son announced my retirement to a nursing facility, I built that house myself, in the evenings and weekends across 2 years, when Gregory and Diane were small. Every beam, every joist, every foot of wiring. I remember Gregory, 6 years old, handing me nails on the half-finished porch while Ruth brought us lemonade, and I remember thinking that I was building something that would outlast me, something my children would raise their own children in. It sits on 11 acres of land that is worth, today, more than most people in this town will earn in their lives, because the town grew toward it and the land grew with it. The house is paid off. The land is paid off. And both of them, along with the proceeds from the company and Ruth's and my savings, add up to an estate worth a little over $3 million. My children believe I am a retired man of modest means living in an old house that has become too much for him. They believe this because I have let them believe it. Because, like my wife taught me, I do not talk about money. And because somewhere along the way, the not talking about it curdled, in their minds, into not having it. They mistook my dignity for poverty. And then they mistook my politeness for weakness. And those 2 mistakes, stacked on top of each other, are the entire reason we are here. Ruth died 3 years ago. And I want to be honest about something, because this story doesn't work if I pretend I was a perfect father standing against ungrateful children. I wasn't perfect. I worked too much when they were young. I was a hard man in some ways, a quiet man in most, and I know that my silence was sometimes mistaken for coldness when it was really just a man who didn't have the words. But I loved them. I paid for everything. I showed up. And when Ruth died, I thought, naively, it turns out, that grief would pull us together. That my children would draw close to their remaining parent. Instead, what happened was that my son Gregory looked at a recently widowed 65-year-old man rattling around in a large house on valuable land, and he began, slowly, to do math. Gregory is 42. He is, I'll admit, the one most like me in temperament, driven, certain, impatient, but where I built things, Gregory has spent his life acquiring things, mostly on credit, mostly beyond his means. He runs a business that I have come to understand is far less successful than the cars and the watches suggest. And his wife, Sloane, is a woman of expensive tastes and thin patience, who has referred to my house, in my hearing, as a teardown on a gold mine. My daughter Diane is 39, and Diane is different. Diane is not cruel. Diane is just tired, and overwhelmed, and easily led by her older brother, the way she has been her whole life. When Gregory decides something is true, Diane finds it easier to agree than to fight. She is not the villain of this story. But she is not the hero either, and I have had to make my peace with that. It started small, the way these things always do. After Ruth died, Gregory began stopping by more often, not to see me, I eventually realized, but to inventory me. To check on how I was managing. He'd walk through the house with his eyes doing that math, commenting on the stairs, the size of the yard, the upkeep. "Dad, this is a lot of house for one person. Dad, have you thought about what happens if you fall?" Always framed as concern. Always, underneath, an argument being built, beam by beam, the way I used to build houses. He was constructing a case. The case was that I could no longer take care of myself, and that the responsible, loving thing would be for me to move somewhere small and manageable, and to let my children help me with my affairs. I remember one visit in particular. Gregory came by on a Saturday, supposedly to help me with a leaking faucet, though he brought no tools and clearly intended for me to watch him call a plumber on his phone, to prove a point about how I couldn't manage the house. I had already fixed the faucet myself that morning. But while he was there, he wandered. I found him in my study, standing at my desk, and he had opened the drawer where I keep my papers. He closed it a little too quickly when I came in, and he smiled and said something about looking for a pen. He hadn't been looking for a pen. He'd been looking for the deed, or the bank statements, or whatever he imagined would tell him how much there was and how hard it would be to get. And the thing that struck me, standing in the doorway of the study I built, watching my grown son rifle through my desk, was how little it bothered him to be caught. He genuinely believed he had the right. He had decided I was already halfway gone, and you don't feel guilty going through the drawers of a man who's already halfway gone. That was the moment I stopped being sad about it and started being careful. And here is where it got serious. About a year ago, Gregory brought me a piece of paper. A power of attorney. He explained it to me slowly, gently, the way you'd explain something to a child or a man you'd already decided was diminished. It would just make things easier, he said. So that if anything ever happened to me, he could handle things without a lot of legal hassle. So that I wouldn't have to worry about the complicated stuff anymore. He had a pen ready. He'd even marked the line for me with one of those little arrow stickers. I looked at that piece of paper, and I looked at my son's face, and I understood with perfect clarity what was happening. My son was asking me to sign away control of everything I owned, while telling me it was a gift. And the terrible part, the part that genuinely hurt, was that he wasn't even nervous. He was confident. Because he had so thoroughly convinced himself that I was a diminished old man that it had not occurred to him I might simply read the document and understand it. I did not sign it. But I didn't refuse, either, not directly. I have negotiated with hard men across 40 years of construction contracts, and you never let the other side know the deal is dead. You let them keep believing. So I told Gregory the first wanted to think it over and maybe have someone look at it, and I watched a flicker of irritation cross his face, quickly hidden. And then I did what I should have done the moment Ruth died and I saw the math start behind my son's eyes. I went and got my affairs in order. Quietly. Completely. I sat down with an attorney, a sharp younger woman named Teresa, recommended by an old client of mine, someone with no connection to my family whatsoever, which mattered. I told her everything. The house, the land, the company money, the savings. The power of attorney Gregory had slid across my kitchen table with a sticker on the signature line. And Teresa, who had clearly seen this exact movie many times before, asked me one question that told me she understood completely. She asked, "Mr. Brennan, do you want to punish them, or do you want to protect yourself?" And I thought about it, honestly, for a good while. And I said, I want to protect myself. And then I want to be free to reward the ones who actually earned it, in my own time, without anyone able to take the pen out of my hand. She nodded and said, "Then we build a trust, and you keep control of all of it, for as long as you live." It took 3 meetings. When it was done, I felt something I hadn't felt since Ruth died, the particular piece of a man who has measured twice and cut once. The fortress was built. None of them knew it existed. And I went back to passing the potatoes and letting them all believe whatever they liked. I want to tell you about my granddaughter Maya, because she is the reason this story has a heart and not just a verdict. Maya is 19. She is Diane's daughter, my only granddaughter, and she is, without question, the best of all of us. While her uncle Gregory was inventorying my house, Maya was the one who actually came to see me. She'd drive over on Sunday afternoons, not because anyone made her, but because she liked me, which at 19 is just about the highest compliment a person can pay an old man. We'd sit on the porch I built and she'd tell me about college, about the engineering program she'd gotten into. Engineering, can you believe it? She got it from somewhere. And she'd ask me about the old days, about building, about her grandmother Ruth. She asked me questions because she wanted the answers, not because she wanted anything else. She never once mentioned the house, or the land, or money. It genuinely did not occur to her. She just liked sitting on the porch with her grandfather. There was one Sunday I think about often. It had been a hard week. It was around the anniversary of Ruth's death, and I'd been low in the way that grief comes back around on a schedule you don't choose. I hadn't told anyone. But Maya showed up that Sunday with 2 coffees and a paper bag, and she didn't say anything about the anniversary, didn't make a thing of it. She just sat down next to me on the porch step and said, "I figured today might be a coffee day." And she'd remembered, without my ever telling her, that her grandmother and I used to drink our coffee on this porch every Sunday morning. She'd brought the coffee because she'd done the math on her own grief and worked out that mine would be worse. We sat there for an hour, mostly not talking, watching the light move across the 11 acres. She has no idea what that hour was worth to me. You cannot buy that. You cannot inherit it. You can only earn it, by being the kind of person who notices when an old man is hurting and shows up with 2 coffees and asks for nothing. That is the whole of it, really. That is the entire test, and she passed it without ever knowing it was being given. One Sunday, Maya mentioned, embarrassed, that she might have to drop out for a semester. The engineering program was expensive, her mother was stretched thin, and there was a gap the loans didn't cover. She wasn't asking me for anything, she was just telling me, the way you tell someone you trust about a worry. I said something non-committal. But I drove to my lawyer's office that week and I made sure, quietly, that Maya's education was paid for, in full, through a fund she wouldn't know about until it had already happened. She never asked. That's exactly why she received. Now, let me take you to Thanksgiving. The whole family came. Gregory and Sloane. Diane and Maya. A few cousins. The house was full, the way Ruth used to make it full, and for a few hours I let myself enjoy it, the noise and the warmth in the rooms I'd built. I cooked the turkey myself, in the kitchen Ruth designed. And then we sat down to eat, at the long table I built from oak I'd milled myself 30 years ago, and somewhere between the turkey and the pie, my son Gregory tapped his glass and stood up to make what he called a little announcement. I assumed it would be a toast. It was not a toast. "I've talked it over with Diane," Gregory began, not looking at me, "and we think it's time, as a family, to start thinking seriously about Dad's future. This house is too much for him. We've all seen him struggling." I had not been struggling. I had just cooked Thanksgiving dinner for 11 people. There's a really good assisted living place over in Fairmont, and we think the responsible thing is to start the process of getting Dad settled somewhere he'll be safe, and to start handling the property and his affairs before something goes wrong. He finally looked at me, with an expression of such practiced, performed compassion that I almost admired it. "Dad, we love you. We just want what's best for you. It's time to let us take care of things now." The table was quiet. Some of the cousins nodded, the way people nod at things that sound responsible. Sloane was already, I noticed, looking around the dining room with the eyes of a woman mentally measuring for renovations. Diane stared at her plate. And Maya had gone very still, and she was looking at her uncle with an expression of dawning horror, because she, alone at that table, seemed to register that a man was being evicted from his own life over dessert. I sat there for a moment. I passed the potatoes, which I was still holding. And then I set them down, and I stood up. "Thank you, Gregory," I said. "That was very thoughtful. I'd like to respond, if I may. And I'd like everyone to hear it, since you've all been kind enough to discuss my future without me." Gregory's confident expression flickered. He had expected, I think, either gratitude or a feeble protest he could gently overrule. He had not expected his father to stand up straight and address the room in the voice I used to use on job sites when the work was being done wrong. "I built this house," I said. "Most of you know that, but I don't think you've thought about what it means. I built it with my own hands, beam by beam, when Gregory and Diane were small. I built it on 11 acres of land. And because none of you have ever heard me discuss money, because my wife and I considered that vulgar, I think some of you have come to believe I don't have any." I let that sit for a second. "Let me correct the record, just once, and then we can go back to never speaking of it. When I sold my construction company 9 years ago, I sold it for considerably more than any of you imagine. This house is paid off. The land it sits on is worth more than most people in this town will see in a lifetime. Between the house, the land, the company, and your mother's and my savings, the estate that you have apparently been discussing dividing up comes to a little over $3 million. You could feel the temperature of the room change. Sloane's head came up. Gregory had gone very still. "And all of it," I continued, "every dollar, every acre, every board I ever nailed into place, is mine. Not yours. Mine. I am 68 years old. I cooked the meal you're eating. I am not confused, I am not declining, and I am most certainly not going to Fairmont." "Dad," Gregory started, "you're taking this the wrong way, we only. You brought me a power of attorney a year ago," I said, "and I watched that land in front of the whole family, because he had not told them about that part. You marked the line with a little sticker. You asked me to sign away control of everything I own, and you told me it was to make my life easier. I didn't sign it, Gregory. And I didn't say no, either, because I learned a long time ago that you don't tell a man his offer is dead while he still thinks it's alive. Instead, I went to see my attorney. And I got my affairs in order. Properly. I looked around the table, at my children, at the cousins, at Sloane doing frantic arithmetic, and at Maya, who had tears standing in her eyes for reasons that had nothing to do with money. So let me tell you how things actually stand, I said. I've established a trust. Everything I own sits inside it now, and I control it completely for as long as I live, which I intend to do stubbornly and for a long time, in this house, on this land. No power of attorney any of you holds will touch it, because none of you holds one, and none of you ever will. And when I am gone, many years from now, the estate will be distributed according to a document that I have already signed, and that reflects exactly what I have observed about each of you in the years since your mother died. Gregory's face had drained of color. What is that supposed to mean, he said, and it wasn't really a question. It means, I said, that I have been watching. The same way you've been watching me, Gregory, except I was watching to learn something other than how to take. You came to this house to inventory it. You went through the drawers in my study looking for the deed. Yes, I saw that. I see most things. Maya came to sit on the porch. You marked a signature line with a sticker and called it a gift. Maya brought me coffee on the anniversary of your mother's death without my ever telling her the date, because she'd troubled herself to remember it. You planned my eviction over Thanksgiving dinner. Maya is the only person at this table who looked horrified when you did it. I have noticed all of it. Every visit. Every phone call that was really a request. Every Sunday afternoon. I notice things. I always have. It's how you stay in business for 41 years, and it's how you raise a granddaughter worth more than the entire estate the rest of you were dividing up in your heads. The silence at that table was total. Even the cousins had stopped pretending to eat. I'm not going to humiliate anyone further tonight, I said. This is still Thanksgiving, and it's still my house, and I'd like us to finish the pie. But I wanted to say it plainly, one time, so there's no confusion going forward. I am not a problem for you to manage. I am not a goldmine for you to inherit. I am your father, and I am very much still here, and I will decide what happens to what I built. Now sit down, Gregory. Your dinner's getting cold. And he sat down. There wasn't anything else for him to do. Here is what happened after. Gregory and I are not close now, though I'm not sure we ever truly were. He called me a few weeks later, and the call was an attempt to repair things that was really another attempt to manage me, and I told him gently that I loved him but that I could see what he was doing, and that he should stop, and come see me sometime when he didn't want anything. He hasn't, yet. Maybe he will. I have not given up on my son, a father doesn't, not entirely, no matter what the son does. But I have learned the difference between hope and foolishness, and I will not hand him the pen again. If he comes back, it will have to be to the porch, empty-handed, the way Maya does. That door is open. It is just no longer a door he can pick the lock on. Sloan, I'm told, no longer refers to my house at all, which is its own kind of progress. Diane and I are slowly mending. She came to see me, alone, a week after Thanksgiving, and she cried, and she apologized for going along with her brother, and she said the thing I'd been waiting 3 years to hear: should have asked you what you wanted. I just let Greg decide, like always. I told her that was the most honest thing anyone in this family had said in a long time, and that it was enough, and that I'd like to see more of her. And I have. She brings Maya sometimes, and the three of us sit on the porch, and for an afternoon here and there it feels like the beginning of something honest, built on the actual ground instead of on what anyone hoped to get. Diane and I are not all the way back. But we are building, and I know something about building. It goes slow, and it holds if you do it right. And Maya. My granddaughter graduates from her engineering program in 2 years, fully paid for, though she still doesn't entirely understand how the financial aid worked out. She comes over most Sundays still. We sit on the porch I built. She started asking me technical questions about load-bearing structures and foundations, because it turns out the things I spent 41 years learning are the exact things she's studying now, and there is no joy I have found in retirement quite like watching my granddaughter take the knowledge in my old hands and carry it into a future I won't see all of. When I'm gone, the largest share of everything I built will go to her. Not because she's owed it, she'd be horrified to hear me say it, and she'll have earned her own way long before then, but because she is the only one who never once treated me as anything other than her grandfather. The money was never the test. The porch was the test. She just never knew she was taking it. I want to leave you with the thing I understood, standing at the head of that table with a bowl of potatoes in my hands. When you get old, the world starts to talk about you in the third person while you're still in the room. Your children begin to decide things about your life and inform you afterward, if at all. And there is a powerful temptation, when that happens, to shrink, to accept the smaller chair, the quieter voice, the role of the problem being managed. Don't. Being underestimated is not the same as being powerless. Very often it is the opposite. Every person at that table had decided who I was, a diminished old man, a tear down on a goldmine, a signature waiting to be collected. And because they decided, they stopped paying attention. And a man no one is paying attention to is a man who is free to notice everything. My son thought it was time to put me in a box and divide what was left. He forgot to check whether I agreed. I built every wall of the house he tried to take. I am still standing in it. And I will decide, in my own time, who has earned the right to stand in it after me. My name is Walter Brennan. They decided I was done. They forgot to ask me. And I had been paying attention the whole time. If this story meant something to you, stay a while. There are more like it here, stories about the people the world is too quick to count out, and the calm, quiet, deeply satisfying moment they stand up and remind everyone exactly who they are. No shouting. No cruelty. Just the truth, spoken plainly, by someone everyone underestimated. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.